We made it. The final night of VBS. It's always a fun week. It's an exhausting week, right? For a lot of people, not so much for me, but for you all, because you've had to listen. But for our teachers, for all the volunteers, they put a lot of work into this to get this ready. And it is the final night, and we do get kind of tired, but then we see all these kids here again tonight, and just that excitement, I love it. I love every minute of it. I love the theme this year, and I like the way that it's been set up. It's all about choices that we make, and so we started with all bad choices with the rich young ruler, some good, some bad with the Israelite spies. Bad choice turned to a good choice with the prodigal son, and now tonight it's looking towards all good, even if costly. So, more good news for tonight. The last several nights we've had two of these sessions. We've had one, then we've had a break, and then we've come back. Tonight at the break there is no coming back. All right, there's ice cream, and I can't compete with that. All right, I know that. But we're in Daniel chapter 3 tonight. So if you have your Bibles, make your way to Daniel 3. To a very, very well-known narrative. It is a staple in Sunday school classes and vacation Bible school lessons, and for good reason. All right? So make your way there. At the beginning of chapter 3 in Daniel, we have King Nebuchadnezzar. Nebuchadnezzar is the ruler of the Babylonian Empire, the most powerful man on earth, or at least that part of the earth. It seems to be the earth at this time. He has it built and is going to erect a monument, an image of some kind. We don't really know exactly what it is because we're not told. We do know a little bit of specifics about it. It is gold, or at least covered with it, and it's 90 feet tall and 9 feet wide. So it doesn't really lend itself to being necessarily an image of Nebuchadnezzar himself, although there are those that say it may very well be. It's just that there's the pedestal and then he's on top. I don't know. We also don't really know for sure why it is he does this, partly maybe because of the dream that he had in chapter 2. If we know about that story, he has this dream, has trouble understanding what it means. Daniel tells him the meaning, and it's of a giant statue, and the head is gold, the chest and arms, I believe, are silver, and then it gets less precious as it goes all the way down. A rock is cut out of the mountain, not by human hands, and it destroys all these kingdoms. And Daniel tells him, you are the head of gold, and other kingdoms are coming. They won't be as big as yours, but there are others coming. And maybe it's a response to that. If he thinks, well, maybe if I can just build an all gold one, then maybe that reverses what the prediction may be. I don't know. Seems more likely, though, that he is looking to unify Babylon with religion. As we read this, we're going to see the dignitaries that come for the dedication for this, and they are from all different parts of the world. The places that Babylon has captured and conquered, the best and the brightest come there and work in the administration. And I think in order to unify the group, a national religion sounds like a good idea. He's not the only one to think of this, by the way. There's others who think of this down through the centuries. We think of the Roman Empire and the tendency, or at least the move and the push toward emperor worship was a way of unifying a very, very disparate group of people that they've conquered. If we can have this national religion, maybe this will help. So he decides to set this up, believes it's going to be a good idea. The people, most of the people that he deals with, one more God's probably not a big thing. I mean, I don't mean to disrespect them, but I think that makes sense. They're used to many. And maybe if there's one more, it won't really offend them all that much. Okay? So, we have the dedication. Daniel gives us a list of the dignitaries that are there, the satraps, the prefects, the governors, the counselors, the treasurers, the justices, the magistrates, and all the officials of the province. They all come. I don't know. Again, we don't know this for sure. It could be that this is the kind of the kickoff for this, and he needs to make sure that he has all of his leaders on board with this as they roll this out throughout the empire, maybe. I don't know. But we do know that these are the folks who are here. And so as they gather in the plains of Dura, where he has this set up, we get to hear the order. Daniel 3, starting verse 4. The herald proclaimed aloud, "You are commanded, O peoples, nations, and languages, that when you hear the sound of the horn, the pipe, the lyre, the trigon, the harp, the bagpipe, and every kind of music, you are to fall down and worship the golden image that King Nebuchadnezzar has set up. Whoever does not fall down and worship shall immediately be cast into a burning fiery furnace. Therefore, as soon as the peoples heard the sound of the horn, the pipe, the lyre, the trigon, the harp, bagpipe, and every kind of music, all the peoples, nations, and languages fell down and worshiped the golden image that King Nebuchadnezzar had set up." So the order's clear. This is what happens when the band strikes up. This is what you do. If you don't, that's fine. You can die. Right? That's kind of it. There's not going to be any wiggle room here. And so at the end of this little section, it says that everybody does it, but not everybody does it. And then we're introduced to those who are going to accuse these three Jewish boys or young men. Sorry, the accusers. They're just called Chaldeans. Maybe natives of Babylon. They may be others that hold some sort of a role there. It may be that they have a little bit of a chip on their shoulder because these three young Jewish men are in the administration. They are over the province of Babylon in some way. And so maybe that's part of the reason, or maybe they're just thinking this is a bad idea to let these guys do their own thing. So they come. They come to Nebuchadnezzar with, "O king, live forever." The order was clear. But there are these three that they didn't participate, right? These Jews. There are certain Jews whom you've appointed over the affairs of the province of Babylon, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. These men, O king, pay no attention to you. They do not serve your gods or worship the golden image that you have set up. Nebuchadnezzar is angry. They've put him in a bad spot. Okay, he is in charge, and these are people in the administration in some form or fashion, and to have them or part of them buck the system is not going to go well, and so he is upset. But Nebuchadnezzar has some good qualities. He has some bad ones, and it's hard to tell which ones outweigh which at any given time. But there is one thing that we can see about him is that he's not just going to take their word for it. Okay? He's smart enough to go, let's find out for sure what's happening. And so he sends and has Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego brought to him. And he says, "Is it true? Is it true, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, that you do not serve my gods or worship the golden image that I have set up? Now, if you're ready, when you hear the sound of the horn, the pipe, the lyre, trigon, harp, bagpipe, and every kind of music, to fall down and worship the image that I have made, well and good. But if you do not worship, you shall immediately be cast into a burning fiery furnace. And who is the God who will deliver you out of my hands?" He seems to be being a bit at least generous with them, giving them the benefit of the doubt. Maybe he didn't hear me. Right? Maybe you misunderstood. But if you're ready, right? I know you are, right? I know you're ready to do this. When we cue the band, this is what you'll do. If not, it's over. The furnace, it's it's a strange thing. I've kind of looked into this some. It seems to be shaped like a big bottle. It's what they smelt different metals with. It may be the very furnace that this image is built with. It's an opening at the top where the ore comes in, a door at the bottom where they stoke the fire. Okay, and this is what we're looking at. If there's, we don't know. I don't know this, but I took their word for it. Could reach like 1,800 degrees Fahrenheit. So it's a serious thing. Okay, so they respond. They answered and said to the king, "O Nebuchadnezzar, we have no need to answer you in this matter. If this be so, our God whom we serve is able to deliver us from the burning fiery furnace, and he will deliver us out of your hand, O king. But if not, be it known to you, O king, that we will not serve your gods or worship the golden image that you have set up." This doesn't go over well, as you can imagine. This is not going to stand. He says he's furious with rage. And this is the part where scholars think that the image that's set up is or is an image at least of Nebuchadnezzar, because it's the same word about his face changing, that his image changes. There's the same word used to describe this idol. So anyway, it's not going to go well. So he orders mighty men. Probably a reason for that is, one, he doesn't want any interference, and he wants to make sure that they understand, that everybody understands that this is what happens when you say no. And he orders the furnace to be stoked, he says 7 times hotter, which probably just means as hot as it can possibly get. He has them bound in their clothes. So the idea is, of course, that as soon as the clothes catch fire, it's over. You can't get out. It's hot enough that the men who throw them in die from the heat. And so they're thrown in. And it seems like they go up, that image of the furnace where they go up and they throw them in the top and they fall in. Nebuchadnezzar is very, very shocked very soon. It's almost funny, right? Because it's almost like he's nudging somebody next to him. He goes, "How many people did we throw in? Right? Weren't there 3?" But as he looks in, apparently, there's a way for him to see in there. He goes, "There's 4. There's 4, and they're all walking around." I mean, these guys were tied when they went in. And there's 4 walking around, and he says, "And one of them looks like a son of the gods." I think the King James Bible says one of them looks like the Son of God. I don't know that Nebuchadnezzar has any idea of that kind of concept at this point. I think in Nebuchadnezzar's world and Nebuchadnezzar's religion, that the various gods of Babylon have children in some way or another. Sometimes it's with other gods, sometimes it's between a god and a human. It's that kind of mythology. But whatever it is that sees him, he says there's something about this one. You can disagree with me if you want to. I believe it to be an angel. I believe it to be probably one that's talked about several times in the Old Testament, the angel of the Lord. I don't know. It's not told. All we know is that somehow God is rescuing them here. And so he yells for them to come out. Again, smart enough not to try to go in after them, right? But he yells for them to come out. And so here they come. And they are not hurt at all. Okay, 1,800 degrees, and they are not hurt at all. Their clothes are fine. Their hair is all fine. Everything is, they don't even smell like smoke. I mean, I can't cook on the charcoal grill without smelling that all night, right? Let alone being in it. Okay? So they come out and they're fine. Nebuchadnezzar, "Blessed be the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who sent his angel and delivered his servants who trusted in him and set aside the king's command and yielded up their bodies rather than serve and worship any god except their own God. I make a decree, any people, nation, or language that speaks anything against the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego shall be torn limb from limb and their houses laid in ruins, for there is no other God who is able to rescue in this way. And the king promoted Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the province of Babylon, or restored them back to the position that they had. One of the two. This is a fantastic narrative. It really is. And there's no wonder. There is no wonder that this is a staple of Sunday school Bible classes, of vacation Bible schools. It's just astounding. And it's very familiar to us, and so I think sometimes we read it and we don't quite catch just how astounding this really is. But I have a question. These three are brought before Nebuchadnezzar, and he says, "You do this or you die." That's pretty much it. And there's no one that can deliver you, right? Who can deliver you? That's what he says. And they respond, "Our God is able to deliver us. He is able to deliver us from your hand." And then they go even further. "But if not, we're still not doing what you ask." Now, my question is this. Why is it that they respond this way? And I'm dead serious. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who until very recently were Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. Some of the noble families in Judah, and now they are captives in Babylon. What makes them think that the God that they served in Judah, the God whose temple is in Jerusalem, and now they are away from home for how long they don't even know, what makes them think that he can do this? It's puzzling to me. Why would they have this kind of confidence? And I think these are people who understand far more than maybe we've given them credit for. Israel and Judah, that we read through and we talk about them quite a bit throughout the Old Testament and all of the trouble that they have. But these seem to be some of the ones that got it. They are people who understand the faithfulness of God, and that the reason that they're in Babylon is because God is faithful. Because God told them exactly what he was going to do if they turned their back on him. And he did it. Maybe they got it. And that's the reason that they refused to bow down to this idol. Because bowing down to idols is what got them where they are now. And they're not doing it anymore. They've seen God's faithfulness not just in the captivity itself, but since the captivity. Daniel chapter 1 talks about they're coming to Babylon and they're arriving there. These are some of the best and brightest. And the best and brightest get get some preferential treatment. They're educated in all of the ways of the Babylonians. And they are fed from the king's table, and they drink the king's wine. But they won't do it. Daniel speaks to the chief of the one that's in charge of the prisoners and says, we can't do this. Can't do it. And the chief of prisoners says, you have to, right? Because if you don't and you start looking bad, then I'm in trouble. And Daniel said, give us vegetables and water and we'll be fine. They don't engage in everything in Babylon, and God takes care of them. They look better than any of the rest of them, and they're promoted. So they have experience of what it looks like when you're obedient to God and when you're not. And maybe that's what gives them the ability to steel themselves in front of this guy and say, I don't care. Kill us if you want. But we're not doing this. God can deliver. And the reason that I ask that question is because this is the faith we want. Isn't it? I mean, we don't read this just so we can go, hey, good job, fellas, right? We read this because there's something here we want. And it's the faith that we want because it's the faith that we need. We need to recognize that God is able to deliver us. And we also need to recognize, just like they did, that it may not look the way we thought it would. A favorite verse of several people, and it's a really good one. I love it. It is Romans chapter 8, verse 28. Where Paul says that we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love Him and are called according to His purpose. Right? Isn't that beautiful? Paul wrote those words and sent those to the church in Rome mid to late 50s AD. Within a decade, Nero is persecuting Christians in Rome. And we wonder how many of those, I have no way of knowing. We wonder how many of those hung on to those words of Paul as they were being pressured to recant or march to their death. That we know that in all things, that God works for the good, even though we don't know where this is going. You see, this is the kind of faith that we want. We think about that in the lives of the followers of Jesus. Peter in Acts chapter 12 is arrested. Herod has already killed James. Seems to be a crowd pleaser among the Jews. And so Peter's next. The church gathers at the home of, I believe her name was Mary, the mother of Mark. The church gathers there and they pray for Peter's release. And an angel shows up. Peter is chained between two guards, and he is released. He walks out, the gates open, and he comes back to that house. Some years later, Peter will be arrested again. And I'm guessing, I don't know this, but I'm guessing that the church gathered and prayed for Peter's release. And history tells us Peter was crucified. God can deliver. It may not be in the way we think. And that's the faith we need. I love this story of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego for a lot of reasons. It's one of those that just kind of seems to really fit well, right? The good guys win. Nebuchadnezzar has a change of heart. Now, I don't think it lasts long, but he has one, right? And everything seems to work out fine. But sometimes it works out much harder. Doesn't it? That doesn't mean it doesn't work out. It just works out differently. And anyone who tries to tell us, that if we are faithful enough and if we follow God closely enough that nothing bad will ever happen to us, is just selling us something, because it's just not the case. And it's not the case, and that's why we need this kind of faith. We follow Jesus. The same Jesus who in the garden said, I don't want to do this. Let this cup pass. But he went to the cross anyway. Because we know that in all things God works for good to those who love Him and are called according to His purpose. We need to remember, and I think we know this, okay? We need to remember that following Jesus, that being obedient to what God has called us to, will always put us at odds with the world around us. It just will. For a long time, quite a long time, Christians have enjoyed favored status here in this country. And that's a great thing. I love it, don't you? Okay. But it may not always be that way. You know, we may see the tide turn. I think we've probably already seen it in some form or fashion, a little bit here, a little bit there. It may turn far worse. I don't know. We hope, we pray that it's not, that it doesn't. And I say we, I mean me. I don't know that any of us are signing up to face this. Do you? But the reality of the situation is that we may need to. And this is the faith that not just that we want, but the faith that we need. Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah are able to make this choice in front of the most powerful man at the world at that time, who holds their lives in his hand, really, because they understand that their God is able to deliver them, even in the furnace. That whatever Nebuchadnezzar may say, however he may try to push his authority, that what they know is that the God that they serve is the only reason Nebuchadnezzar is there. And it's this God that's responsible for everything else, and that this God can take care of them no matter what. They're able to make this choice. Because I think that, and I don't know this, we don't have a lot about these guys, but it certainly seems reasonable that they're able to make this choices because they've been able to make the other little choices along the way. Not eating the king's food. Not surrendering who they are as the people of God just because of the pressure around them. And it's in those little everyday choices that we're able to make the big ones when it comes along. We always have something that we ought to look at, right? What is it we learn about God here? Well, we learn that God is able. And that God can save, and sometimes God saves from, and sometimes God saves in. God could have kept them out of the furnace. I believe that. But He didn't. Instead, He went with them. And sometimes in those moments that we wish God would rescue us from, we need to look around and notice that He's in there with us. That we're not on our own. We need to remember, for us, that God is always faithful. It's easy when we're here, right? It's pretty easy to do that. It's pretty easy to be the right kind of people here. I mean, we have to be. You all are watching, right? But that God is always faithful no matter what. There's not a promise that He's made that He hasn't kept. There's not a promise that He's made that He won't keep. Which means that there is nothing that can separate us from Him. Also from Romans chapter 8. I heard this a long time ago, and I cannot remember who it was that said it, and it was quoted in another book, and I can't remember the author. But he said, the writer says that Jesus promised His followers three things. That He would be entirely fearless and absurdly happy and in constant trouble. Right? We've hit the in constant trouble part. We are always going to find ourselves at odds with the world around us. Christianity is countercultural, period. Absurdly happy. Absurdly happy. And that relates to the being entirely fearless, because there is nothing with which we can be threatened. Nothing. What we have that Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego did not have is the resurrection. They knew nothing about that. And if the resurrection doesn't do anything else for it, it does this for us, that there is nothing with which we can be threatened. That death doesn't defeat us. I think this is appropriate. If you don't, I'm sorry. I think this is appropriate to talk about this particular lesson in this way tonight. Vacation Bible School. Because, see, this is not just the faith that we want and not just the faith that we need. This is the faith that our kids need. Because if the tide does turn, it may not be in my lifetime. As Randy Harris says, I'm a lot closer to being buried than being born. How's that? But it may in theirs. Or it may in the lives of our grandkids. I don't know. I'm not a doomsday guy, okay? I'm just not. But I'm also a realist. And that's why these kind of things are important. That's why the stories that they tell, that they've heard this week, that's why the story tonight that they're going to be told back here in a classroom that is very, very well decorated, by the way. I didn't turn on the black lights, but I wanted to really bad. It's really, really neat. They've got it set up. They've got a fiery furnace set up that glows in the dark when you turn on the light. It's amazing. Anyway, right? But that kind of thing that we continue to remind them. But it's not just these old stories. It's that we share our own. I have a feeling that's where Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah got theirs. It was the community of God's people sharing those together, from generation to generation, retelling the stories of how God has worked in their lives. And He's worked in ours, hasn't He? That we continue to share those. We talk about them. We talk about what it looks like that God's faithful when we weren't, and how God's rescued us from that. I want to say one more time, thank you. Thank you for being here. For those of you who have stuck it out all week, thank you. For those of you who are just here tonight, thank you. These things are incredibly important, and I am so glad that we're here to be able to share them together. Again, I told you a while ago I can't compete with ice cream, and I don't even try, okay? I don't even try to resist it much. Okay, that's going to be set up in the fellowship hall here in a little while. I don't know exactly when. I don't know exactly when they're going to get done, but just visit, go back there, see if you can help. Maybe get in line early. I don't know. Whatever. But let's have a prayer as we close. Father, we thank you so much. We thank you so much for today. We thank you so much for the blessings that you pour out on us. We're thankful for our time together. We're thankful to be in the presence of these kids that bring such excitement and enthusiasm. And it's contagious. We're thankful for their willingness to listen to the stories and to find themselves in them. And we're thankful that we're able to pass that along. Father, as we think about all of the great things that you've done, and we think about this particular event in the lives of these three young men, we want that kind of faith. And we ask that you help us to get that. That we remind ourselves and we have you remind us constantly of who you are. And that you're able. That no matter what happens, you're able to keep us. We're thankful to be your people. We want to do that well. And we ask for your help, and we are thankful that you've put us in a community with one another that we can encourage and lift up as we all make our way home. We love you so much, Father. In Jesus' name, amen.